Hello, everybody, and welcome into another playoff preview show here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. And we are into the conference finals now, and the Eastern Conference Finals starting tonight. We're watching this, and it's going to be the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. The Panthers back in the Eastern Conference Final. They were there last year. They made it to the Stanley Cup Final. Looks like they're on a pretty good track to do it again, but the Rangers stand in their way, and they're a pretty formidable team. They were almost swept the Carolina Hurricanes, which I know we did not anticipate that they were going to be that dominant, but the Hurricanes fought back and almost made it game seven. If not for Chris Kreider's heroics, they probably would have. But Kreider had the natural hat trick, and that was it. And I've got Jacob Strozyk and Jim Bay here again. And thanks, guys, for coming on. And you keep making it through here. We'll see who's gonna stay standing for the Stanley Cup Final. But how's it going?
It's going really well. Like you were talking about, we're surprised. I was looking at my Rangers bingo card, and nowhere did I have Chris Kreider hat trick in one period
Yeah.
to propel them to the thing of all the things we talked about. That was not one of them. So I'm just kind of looking to see what the next surprise is going to be for the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't anticipate that, and the Hurricanes had a pretty substantial lead going into the third, and well, Kreider said, "Oh, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen," and he's been pretty good throughout the playoffs, so probably another key guy. And Jacob, how's it going?
Yeah, hopefully you can't get rid of me anytime soon. I mean, I'd like to see the Florida Panthers take it all the way. They're a lot of fun for me to watch personally, is seeing a lot of former Sabres on there. So it's a good time for me. Just it's a good show. It's a lot of powerhouses in the playoffs this
Yeah.
year. So it's honestly some of the most fun I've had watching in recent years. So it's a good time. I'm excited.
Yeah, and they got the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers and the other comp in the West. Even if it was the Canucks Stars, that would have been a pretty good series too. So lots of great stuff to go. So let's start with our just a bit of a journey. We know how they made it through to the second round, but Jacob, take us through how the Panthers got through the Boston Bruins. I mean, after game one, never thought, the Bruins, oh, maybe they're gonna have put up a fight here. Well, after that, really the Panthers kind of took over. But how'd you see that series go?
Yeah, I mean, it was really you could say they kind of shut them down more than anything else because the story out of Boston was they just couldn't get any shots on goal. You looked at the shot totals for pretty much every single game, and they were just they were holding them to under 20 shots just about every single time. So the Panthers just stifled them throughout every single opportunity they had. So defense was the number one priority, and I don't think anybody really saw that coming as far as you know play style more than anything else. But it was nice to see them kind of suffocate the potential that the Bruins really had as far as their offensive capabilities and what they were showing from the first round. So it was good to see that their offense was really, really shining through. They were putting pucks in the back of the net. Bobrovsky looked fine. He had a couple of shaky moments, but that's Sergei Bobrovsky. He's Dominic Hasek one night, and then he's your standard backup goaltender another night. So it's a give and take with him. So you take what you get, and it's been consistent through and through with them. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I I was a little concerned with some of the controversy that some people were probably talking about with the Sam Bennett situation, but it was nice to see him come back. But at the end of the day, a win's a win. So we'll move on from that topic, I guess. As far as what was fair and what was not, because you know, if we're talking, fair play versus not fair play, it's Sam Bennett versus Brad Marchand. If it's the other way around, are we still having the same conversation type
Hmm.
thing?
Yeah.
So we're gonna chalk that up to a wash as far as I'm concerned, and we're just gonna move on for conversation's sake.
Yeah. Right. New series, and Marchand's no longer in the playoffs. So we'll move on from there. Yeah, you're saying about the offense. I mean, the Panthers did get blown out in game one, 5-1. I think chalking that up to the fact that they weren't playing for a while and kind of getting their bearings, and the Bruins were just coming off a high, winning against the Maple Leafs. So I think that was the reason. Panthers bounced back 6-1 next game, and then 6-2 the other next one. And then it was a really low scoring one. They won 3-2, and then it was 2-1 the last two games. So, it showed that the Panthers can play those tight games, which the Rangers have been known to do as well, playing those really tight 1-goal games. And this could be, again, we're not sure how this series is going to go. It could be a tie, it could be a low scoring, it could be high scoring. I don't know. Both teams can do it. So, Jim, over to you. Looking at the Rangers, like we talked about, the fact that they went up 3-0 against the Hurricanes, and then the Hurricanes put up a fight, brought it, almost kind of scared them a bit, almost forced a game 7. I'm kind of thinking, oh no, maybe the Hurricanes are going to do it and I think the third or fourth team to come back from a 3-0 deficit and win. But like you say, Chris Kreider had other ideas. How do you think that series went overall for the Rangers?
Well, that series, much like their entire playoff series, is kind of like, was like a microcosm of their season, where they started out really strong, and then here comes these other Rangers that all of a sudden are going to decide to make all these mistakes and not play smart hockey and do other things, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, whoa, we got to be done with our Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing. We got to go back. Here we go. And then they get on that roll and win the President's Cup, and then take 7 straight playoff games until Mr. Hyde comes back.
Yeah.
And yeah, Carolina did crawl back. They're a tough team. They fought, but we also saw the mistakes come back. Games where you're watching going, what is he doing with the puck? Why are they making that line change right now, leading to a 2-on-1, 2-on-0, or whatever? And it was those kind of things that happened in those games before, Kreider, put them on their back and took them to the next round. That, you got to see less of that next round.
Yeah.
As each level of team gets, the Panthers are a little bit better than the Hurricanes. Let's face it. I mean, there's a reason why they're there and the Hurricanes are not. So with each level, you got to cut back on the mistakes. And that's, I think, the things that, the Rangers, at least they're saying in their little time off, are saying that they also need to take care of in the Eastern Conference Final.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you say, I mean, the Panthers also had a bit of hiccups in their series against the Bruins. I mean, both series went 6 games. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, they're both powerhouse teams. There's no underdog here, really. I mean, not at all. I mean, they were both ridiculously good in the regular season. Rangers, of course, won the President's Trophy, but the Panthers weren't far behind. They were actually in the running for the President's Trophy for the longest time. So yeah, lots of firepower on both sides. So let's talk about some of that firepower or depth or whatever you want to talk about for players to watch. We'll stay with you, Jim. We'll talk about Chris Kreider. Artemi Panarin's gotten his points. One thing I did notice with the Rangers, though, they're not getting a lot of production from their bottom 6. It seems to be the top 6 that are doing a lot of it. Are those the guys you're going to be watching for? Because the Panthers are pretty deep, and they've been getting pretty much scoring throughout their lineup. I think Ryan Lomberg had a goal in one of the games, or they need to get that too. Is that who you're watching, or are you going to still be kind of looking at the Chris Kreiders, Artemi Panarin's, Vincent Trocheck, who's a former Panther, and he just played his former team, the Hurricanes. So can he do it again? Right. So
yeah, definitely the depth of the Rangers is, one of the things, we're looking at a little article in the New York Post about, the betting lines, and, the betting line people won't say too much about, why they're doing what they're doing, but there is that little thing where they believe where, yes, the Rangers have a little bit of advantage in net, but the Panthers have the advantage in overall team depth. And the bottom 6 for the Rangers have played fine, but they can't play just fine in this series going beyond. I think one of those keys is getting Hedel back. If he does come back, he's back and then, hurt or ill or whatever it was, they would, definitely welcome him back. And, there's a possibility that Blake Wheeler comes back too.
Mhm.
That would be a huge addition to, wherever he goes in the lineup to, bolster and filter all of that down. So, that depth starts coming through. There's a little bit of depth, Barkley Goodrow, had a goal and, I thought did some really nice things in the series. So, they got to keep that going and, maybe take it up a little, one more notch if they plan on, moving on past the Panthers into the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, I think it was Steven Lawrence, not Lomberg. Lomberg's played in the series, but he hasn't scored. So Steven Lawrence, I was thinking of. He's got 2 goals, and he's more of a depth guy. So, Jacob, who are you looking at for the Panthers? I mean, the usual suspects are doing it. Carter Verhaeghe, again, ridiculously good in the playoffs. It just seems like he just steps up his game. Reinhart, 5 goals. I mean, he's not scoring on the power play as much as he was in the regular season. He only has 1. But yeah, all the guys, Barkov, Kachuk doing it again, not as crazy as he was last year, but he was scoring at will, only has 4. But who are you looking at for the Panthers in this series?
I feel like at this point, they're going to have to start relying on guys from the back end to start doing a little bit more. Because in the Boston series, there was some noticeable lapses in the early games. And if you're going to start having defensive lapses against the New York Rangers early on, you're going to drop 2 games, and that's going to be a difficult thing to recover from. And I don't know if a 2-0 series deficit is something that you can really deal with. So maybe getting some additional offense from them to jump ahead quick, or really having them focus on sitting back and really doubling down on that defensive effort that they were really showing off in those later games might be something that they could take a look at. But really focusing in on the defensemen. So somebody like Aaron Ekblad stepping up a little bit more, somebody like Oliver Ekman-Larsson stepping up a little bit more. Ekman-Larsson is a -2 right now. But Ekblad is a +6, so he's not as bad. But I don't know about anybody else if they remember the first couple of games from Boston series, but Ekblad was noticeably brutal in those games, and it was severely painful to watch. And you could probably still find the coach's comments from those games, and oh my gosh, he even said, yeah, he'll be better next game, because it was just noticeably just frustrating to see that. And he did get better, but he's somebody that is going to be, it's very important for him to step up and do his job severely well. So getting a little bit of extra offense from him and still locking down the defensive end like he's supposed to. Ekman-Larsson producing a little bit more on the power play would be spectacular. Getting Brandon Montour has been pretty good so far overall. I don't think you really need to focus on him, but a little bit extra out of him is always very helpful. He's a very game driving type of player. So having that bonus offense, having that more play driving type, defenseman to really step up into something and really create something out of nothing would be very, very helpful in a series like this. So those top couple of defensemen, I think, can be huge difference makers in a series like this.
Gustav Fleursling has been great. He was great all season. 7 points in 11 games. He's a +8. What was he, a plus something ridiculous in the regular season? So I think their defense is probably one that's going to be a key one in this series, not just offensively, but of course defensively, because the Rangers are really good. Both teams. Like I say, I don't know how this series is going to go. So, Jim, what's key to victory for the Rangers in this one? There's lots of stuff that they've done well. A lot. I mean, like you say, there are things that they need to clean up that kind of reared their ugly head in against the Hurricanes in those last few games.
Yeah, part of it is, do the good things that you did, in the first 2 rounds. And what they were able to do on a fairly consistent basis is stay out of trouble, stay out of the penalty box, more than your opponent, and take care of the puck. And, we see when they're not successful, those are the things that are first and foremost, with the Rangers. And when they're doing well, those aren't an issue.
Mhm.
The mistakes are minimal. The penalties are kind of like your normal kind of, not run of the mill, but things that happen in the game, not the silly penalties on retaliations or, getting upset and cross-checking somebody and getting caught, all of those different things. And they've done a really good, job of that in the first two games. They do a little bit better job, then, they're looking to see whether they're going to go to Dallas or Edmonton for their road games in the Stanley Cup final.
Mhm. And you playing against the Oilers, their power play is ridiculous. So you want to be taking penalties against that one.
Yeah.
Jacob, what
They're
about
good
the
too.
Pan?
Look, I mean, they didn't get where they did by,
Yeah,
just being so on the power play. That, they do all of that well. And as you get
yeah,
to each level, each team is much better at those special teams and different things like that, or they wouldn't be where they were. So,
that's right.
that even becomes even, more important the farther you get into the playoffs.
Yeah, special teams. It's something you always talk about every time, and it does make a huge difference. As I saw in Game 7 with the Canucks, and you don't score on the power play, and all of a sudden, you got the Oilers got one and they got one. So it's very big, especially when the power plays are in games and when the penalty kill is too. I mean, when you kill them. Jacob, what about the Panthers? I mean, they had some. I mean, they did have a little bit of difficulty with the Bruins at times. What do they need to do better against the Rangers here, who are, I mean, like Jim said, when they're playing well, they don't make mistakes, and they're pretty tough to beat.
I feel like I'm just piggybacking at this point,
Same
saying
thing.
doing something on the power play because it's been a noticeable thing about the Panthers all during the playoffs. They're only running a 22% power play right now, and that's not indicative of the type of offense that they're capable of running. And with the Rangers, how they can play on their penalty kill, I think it's at like a 90% or just below it if it is for their penalty kill. That's something that's going to be very difficult to get through or get around. So they have to adjust. They have to find a way to break through that and get something past Igor Shesterkin. It's not going to be something simple, but they made it past Vasilevsky. They made it past Jeremy Swayman. They made it past Allmark. They're not going up against rudimentary goaltenders here by any means. They've done it for 2 rounds straight. So if they can figure out those guys, they can definitely figure out a way to get it past Shesterkin. And this is just money in the bank for them if they can figure out how to actually contribute something on their power play.
Mhm.
And that is something that will just turn the tide for them more than anything else in any playoff series right now. And it's been killing them, if you ask me, at this point,
Mhm.
because their offense would just be explosive if half of their opportunity, I mean, I guess for any team, if half of your opportunities went in, you would just be dominating games. But comparatively to most of the other teams where they're sitting at like a 30 or more percent on their power play, it's making a much bigger difference for how they're performing in these types of games. So when Florida is sitting only at about 22%, you're not even at a fourth. So they need something more. They need the adjustment, whether it's, getting more guys towards the front of the net or throwing something uh, from a different angle or creating something a little bit different and not just always going for, Kachuk on the side, looking for Reinhart in the slot or uh, going for the Montour shot from the point, looking for somebody to tip it. They need something different. You can't just go for the same 3 plays every single time. And then with 30 seconds left, throw the second power play out and think, okay, Evan Rodriguez might shoot it. Like you got to come up with something slightly different if you're going to try and beat one of the best goaltenders in the world. So there needs to be an adjustment if they're going to break through this.
Well, like I mentioned before, Reinhart one power play goal. He had 27 in the regular season. That's a huge. I mean, that's something that he's got to start potting some of those on the power play. And something about Panthers were on their ridiculous slump where they couldn't score on the power play. I think they got their first one in like some crazy amount in the Bruins series there when they were blowing them out. They got their first power play goal in like forever. So yeah, that definitely needs to be something, especially it's when they're scored too. Like I say, even if it's just one power play goal, certain times of the game, it's more important to get them. And Panthers are going to have to do that. I think this is going to be a tight series. So these are going to be big ones whenever they get on the power play for both teams. All right, let's talk about some X factors. I mean, there could be quite a few players that could potentially come out of the woodwork here. There are, like you said, Jim, Hedel could be an X factor in this if he comes back. But I don't know. I'm not sure what the injury was again when he had to leave. It was such a big thing when he came back, and now he's gone again. What do you think is an X factor for the Rangers in this one?
Well, I think it could be Hedel, coming back and the other part is where is he gonna, play? Um, I know, one of the Rangers guys on the Hockey Writers wrote about him being the third line center. Um, and doing some things around that. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of experimenting, but I think the real X factor is Blake Wheeler. If he comes back and he kind of comes back even 80%, 90%. I know he's been out for a while, but I think just that spark he's going to bring to the lineup, and again, that we talked about it earlier, adding to the depth of however they decide to use them, they just become a deeper team. Once he gets back on that roster, and the same thing for Hedel. Um, and then I think the other, get the depth is keeping everybody else healthy too. This period of time that they've had to rest, sometimes it can be a good thing, sometimes it's going to, it's a bad thing, but I think overall it's going to be good for the Rangers. Um, you know, they play a pretty physical game. It's been a long season, and regrouping and doing that I think is going to be do a lot for them, and also be kind of the one factors. Adam Fox is kind of like everybody's looking at him like there's something happening. He hasn't really been skating or playing the way that he has been. There's been some, in a game, whether it was at the end of the regular season or the beginning of the playoffs, that he might have, gotten dinged up a little bit. So, I think those players and the overall Rangers' health, I think, will be one of the bigger X factors in this series.
I mean, everyone's playing banged up at this time of year, but yeah, some guys are maybe playing some major injuries. I'm waiting for, we always wait for these big injuries to come out after teams are eliminated. It's like, oh, this guy was playing with something needs surgery, and it's like, how are you playing on this? But yeah, it's interesting to see what injuries come out after everything's over. Jacob, what do you think is an X factor for the Panthers? There are quite a bit of guys that maybe need to step up. Could it be one of those that could be an X factor here?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. I mean, one I feel like could be an obvious one would be Vladimir Tarasenko. He's been solid so far, but with his mild connection to the Rangers, the idea of like revenge tour in air quotes comes to mind. It's not really a revenge tour, but it could still come to mind. He might be a little additional motivation
Yeah.
could come to him while he's playing this type of a series, and he could think, I really want to do a little bit more, and he could pot a couple extra goals. So somebody like him could be an additional X factor. Sam Bennett coming back full time. He's a spark plug, so he's definitely going to be a key contributor. Maybe not on the score sheet every night, but he's going to throw his weight around. He's going to throw his words around. He's going to be throwing just about everything else attached to his body around. So it's going to be a chippy series left and right. Both teams have guys that are going to be throwing elbows, sticks, knuckles, shins, knees, you name it, everywhere in every which direction. And it's going to be a physical series. So there's going to be plenty of it. getting around, and I think Bennett's going to be at the heart of a lot of it. So there's plenty of it to go around. This is another what I call Matt Tkachuk type series where he can get really chippy. He can be the pest that he is and still be the offensive physical player that he's supposed to be. So he's another person that comes to mind as far as an X factor is concerned. I can throw Nick Cousins in there as well for the physicality and the same type of reasoning for Sam Bennett. He's not as much of an offensive contributor, but he's got that depth and that kind of physical, pestilent play that he can add to this type of a series, and he can wear down the Rangers and maybe bring down their speed and maybe get in on them just a little bit more compared to some of the other some other series. So I think the physicality will get upped in this series, and I think it'll play a little bit more of a factor. So those guys will play a little bit more of a role.
Yeah, this one could get pretty physical. There's both sides have their guys that can throw their weight around, and yeah, it should be. We'll see if that.
Someone's got to deal with Matt Rempe.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Matt Tkachuk can definitely do it. I don't know how much they'll play against each other. Probably not much. All right, let's talk about series MVPs. Go a few different ways. There's lots of guys that have already stepped up their games quite a bit in this playoff, so lots of choices. Jim, who do you have as series MVP?
I'm gonna go Shesterkin. I think that when it's all said and done, whatever happens in front of him, he's still got to be the glue behind it. And I'm expecting him to, do that in this series. And all the guys do what they need to do in front of him, and he will be the series MVP for the Rangers in this one.
All right. Yeah, I can definitely see that especially he's been really solid throughout the playoffs here so far. So yeah, he can definitely be, but Bobrovsky, obviously a very good goaltender too. Jacob, who do you have as a series MVP in this one?
I think it's going to be Barkov. As much as I want to say it's Bobrovsky, I think the defense is going to carry him as much as they possibly can and try and keep everything away from him. And he just needs to be as decent as he possibly can. But the offense is going to run through Barkov. All of the general play and the tone of this team is going to be set through how Barkov is and how he plays and how he has this team moving and, vibing on every particular night. So he's the captain. He's the one that's going to get everything. Everything's just going to run through everything he does. So it doesn't matter if it's scoring. It doesn't matter if it's defense. It doesn't matter if it's just mentality. It's all through him. And I think that's really what is going to drive his series MVP standing for a series like this, because it's going to take a lot of mental focus to get through a team like the Rangers for them.
Yeah, and Selke Trophy winner. So that's something he's already hanging on. So that's yeah, he would definitely be a choice for series MVP. All right, final predictions for this one. It could be a long series. I don't know. We said the Hurricanes Rangers one was gonna be a long series. It ended up being one. I mean, 6 games is pretty long. But I thought it was gonna be much tighter back and forth, not one that someone had to come back from. But Jim, who do you have winning this one?
I think that the Rangers are going to take care of business. I think they are going to handle Sam Bennett just fine. I think they know what they're getting into. They've had some experience in that. As you mentioned him, he worries because the Rangers can not always react well to antagonists. They can overreact, but I think they're going to handle all of that. I think they're going to take the series in 6.
All right, 6 games. Jacob, what do you got for this one?
If you asked me last week if the Rangers swept Carolina, I would have picked the Rangers. But because they faltered, I am going to reel that back in, and I'm going to say Panthers in 7. I think that they can duke it out and kind of trade games, and it'll go back and forth, home and home, tie it up, and it'll bring it down to game 7. and they'll take it right at the end in a close series, and I think they'll win it in the final one.
All right. This is the tough one. I'm gonna say 7 games. I think this goes 7, but I really have a feeling of the Panthers this year for the cup. If the Hurricanes would have made it through, I had also a little bit of feeling with them, but Panthers have just, I think they have a big chance. So I'm gonna say Panthers in 7. Even though they have to win game 7 at MSG, but yeah, I'm going to say Panthers. We'll see what happens. But yeah, this should be a fun series. I think it's going to be a back and forth, physical, lots of skill on both sides, great goaltending. Should be a good one. But thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Jim, for coming on another show. We'll see who's back for the Stanley Cup final. And make sure to check out everything at thehockeywriters.com. We got articles every day. We got recaps after the games. If you want to just have a quick rundown of it. That comes out right after the game. And of course, takeaways from the writing teams here on the site. But until our next preview video, will be one more. The other one for the Western Conference final, then the Stanley Cup final. So 2 more coming up. So until those, we'll see you on another episode of a Hockey Writers Preview Show here.